Welcome to Digital Marketing for Contractors, a podcast for home improvement contractors to help you crush your lead goals and take your business to the next level. Join us each episode as we give you powerful insights and practical tips on the best digital marketing strategies to help you grow your home improvement business. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Digital Marketing for Contractors podcast. This is a podcast all about helping home improvement contractors to crush your lead goals and take your business to the next level. Digital Marketing for Contractors is hosted by Fat Cat Strategies. We are a marketing agency based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. My name's Don, and I'm one of the account managers here at Fat Cat.
Hey, I'm Janet, and I'm the founder and managing partner.
And we are really glad to be with you guys today. We're excited to be able to talk about a topic that, Janet, frankly, I've been seeing show up in my inbox quite a bit lately.
Same.
And that is just I've been getting these emails that make it sound like the world is falling apart because Google is switching over to this thing called Google Analytics 4. And
oh my God, be afraid.
Right,
be very afraid.
Everything looks like, if you're not on top of this, your whole business is just going to collapse, and you better get it done today. And here we are to help you, give us a call. So we just kind of wanted to jump into the fray a little bit here and talk about Google Analytics 4 and, what it is, why is Google changing it? And is it really as big a deal as every marketer is trying to make it that we, the sky is falling and you better do something about it right now. So that's kind of our what we want to talk about today. And so I would just say let's not bury the lead. Is it as big of a deal as everyone under the sun is making it out to be?
I'm going to say no.
Okay. And I'm not surprised by that, but why would you say that?
So, I often like to play the role of old fuddy-duddy in the room, and I'm happy to play it. So let's first talk about what is Google Analytics. And so for our listeners, I'm assuming that you are doing things that are tangible and visible at the end of the day. You built something, you installed a roof, you installed a bath. It's a thing you can lay your eyes on. Google Analytics is a little bit more ephemeral than that. What is it? It's a little piece of code. And what is code? It's, what makes computers work. Mm-hmm. It's a little snippet of code that you copy and paste into every page of your website. And what it does is it tracks stuff. So if you've heard all of the pearl clutching about privacy and the battle between Apple and Facebook and Google and what they're tracking when you do things on the internet, in my opinion, Google Analytics is part of that because it tracks things. So what are those things? So if you think about a website, it's a collection of pages that has content and images on it. And a Google Analytics account will give you insight on how many people looked at those pages. What pages did they look at? What things did they do when they looked at those pages?
Yeah.
So in its essence, Google gave us this free tool over a decade ago, and marketers have loved it. I've loved it. It gives you a lot of insights. It gives you a lot of information that can help shape your decisions about what you do with your online marketing. But on the flip side of that, I've talked to a number of contractors that have grown their business by word of mouth. And yes, they had a website, but when they came to us, they didn't even have analytics installed.
Yeah.
And was it a deal breaker for them? No, not at the time. Is it something that's really nice to have and an important part of your digital strategy? I say yes, it is. But, if you're getting emails from agencies or from vendors telling you that, your website's going to go offline, or they're using any kind of scare tactic telling you, that you have to take action by a certain date or something terrible is going to happen. We're here to tell you nothing terrible is going to happen.
Yeah. I think that's right too. And even, as we look at the differences between the old version of analytics, which was called Universal Analytics, and now this new one called Google Analytics 4, there are some important differences, but I don't know that the differences are that huge that they're going to make a massive difference to the way that a contractor thinks about running their business. I think the issue is just really that Google turned off the old one. So it's no longer functioning. So if you're a contractor and you had analytics installed on your website and you haven't done anything about it, you don't have those analytics anymore. Like it's
So
gone.
Don, why don't you tell people, like, give them a bullet point list of some of the things that they may have, our listeners may have heard either a vendor or someone on their staff talk to them about from data that came from analytics. Like, break it down. If I'm a roofer, and I've got somebody in my office that quote unquote manages my website and does my marketing.
Yeah.
What kinds of things might I have heard from that person that came from the old Google Analytics, and what might be different in the new one?
Yeah. Okay. Great questions. So at just a basic level, some of the things that we talk about with our clients that come from analytics are things like, how many people came to your website last month? You know, just a really, really basic
big
level.
picture number.
Yeah. Number of visitors that you had to your site. And even breaking it down from there, Google can start to tell how many visits did you have to your site versus how many visitors. So like, you know, you might have one person that came to your site 18 times. Well, that's 18 visits, but only one visitor. And so they can start to tell the difference.
Interesting and useful information.
Yeah. So you can start to see the difference. You can also look at what pages on your site are people going to most often. So are people visiting your home page? Are they visiting your contact page? Are they looking at your team page or like jobs, you know, applying to your careers page? Or are they looking at your actual services, you know,
or your photo gallery, maybe your project photo gallery.
So knowing any of that information can help us try to figure out like what pages on your site do we need to prioritize? What are people checking out, and how can we, you know, help them maybe check those things out even more? Or are there some pages that we really do want them to check out that are kind of lagging behind? And how do we, you know, help up the content or the accessibility or the interest in those pages so that, you know, they can be improved? So some things like that are the really basics. But then you can get into other things as well that starts talking about events or goals, which just basically means you kind of reference it like, what are people actually doing on your site?
Yeah. So what is an event in the framework of Google Analytics?
So it can be anything from just a simple click, like, hey, I clicked on this link on your page, to like, I filled out this form and pressed the submit button, or, you know, anything that involves an actual action on your site. Those are the things that Google talks about as events. And so for contractors, the things that are really important there usually are things that have to do with leads. So filling out a form, click to call buttons, click to text, you know, any of those kinds of things. Those are the things that we, especially as an agency, pay attention to and are trying to figure out, not only like how many of those things did you get, but where did those things happen on your site? Were there certain pages where a lot of people filled out a form? Like, did they fill out the form a lot on your roofing page, but maybe didn't fill it out so much on your Windows page? And why would that be different? You know, those are the kinds of things that we start to look at and see, hey, what's going on there? You know, what's happening?
Don, I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to just be transparent and honest. You know, I founded this company and I do a lot of things at a leadership level. But when it comes to like the day-to-day, some of the really, you know, detail work that we do here, I've got a fantastic staff and I lean on the staff for them to do this stuff. Yeah. So I'm going to be honest, there's a little bit going on in this conversation that it's been a hot minute since I've been hands-on with it. So we're going to role reverse a little. Most of the time, you know, the way we do these podcasts, Don kind of interviews me, and so I'm going to interview Don a little bit here. So
bring it on. We'll see how I do.
Okay, so you're talking about events. Would it be fair to assume or understand that with Google Analytics, maybe with the events in the new GA4, could I do something like have maybe like get an estimate page, like a roofing page with a form, you know, get a free estimate, get a free inspection. And maybe that form was at the bottom of the page. I had to scroll a little bit to get to it.
Yeah.
Would we be able to move the form from the bottom of the page to the top of the page and then know the date that we did it? Say we did it May 1st, and then compare how many events happened with that form submission after we moved it on the page versus before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the things to really be able to use analytics for, is to kind of, marketers call it A/B test,
Right.
Essentially to look at, like, let's try one version of this and try another version of this and see which version works the best.
Let's change the button from green to red.
Yeah, simple things like that. Or, as you mentioned, change the location of the form on the page and
Right.
see, does that make a difference in how many people fill it out?
That might be a fairly simplistic example,
Yeah.
based on all the things that GA4 can do.
Right. But honestly, those are the kinds of things that I think it affects contractors the most. For the most part, with our contractor websites, the complexities of what Google Analytics 4 probably can do aren't, for the most part, things that we have to dive in too much, and certainly not that contractors need to really know about. What they really want to know about, what you guys who are listening, I know, want to know about, really has to do mostly with leads. And so the things that we pay attention to are, what we've already really mentioned, like how many visits you're getting to your site, what pages they're checking out, who's filling out forms. And I think another one that I really love to kind of drill into a little bit, is looking at the sources of your web traffic. So let me explain a little bit of what that means.
Yeah, what do you mean by source?
Yeah. So when we're talking about web traffic, we're talking about now how many people came to your site, okay? And when we say source, what we mean is, where did they come from to get to your site? So how did they find out about your site? Did they just go to their web browser and type in your address straight away? abcroofing.com, and then boom, they're on your site. Google Analytics refers to that as direct traffic, meaning that they came directly to your site, basically from no other source. They just came there. Now, they might have searched for roofers near me, and then they found your link to your site in that Google results page, and they clicked on you.
So that source would be organic.
That source would be what Google Analytics calls organic, or what we sometimes call SEO. Same kind of idea. They're doing it through a search. Now, maybe they searched for roofers near me, and at the top of that page was an ad for your site that you're paying for that ad, and they click on the ad. Now Google is going to refer to that as PPC, or some other kind of label that's going to indicate it was paid traffic. They're coming to your site because of an ad. That could happen as well on a place like Facebook. If you're paying for ads on Facebook, Google Analytics will be able to tell that the paid traffic came to your site from that kind of location. So
yeah, those are those classic pie charts that we like to show people.
Yeah.
So a simple pie chart that I think I could paint a picture in someone's mind. Picture a pie chart divided into thirds that's 3 different colors. Mm-hmm. What we would do is we would talk to a client and say, hey, we looked at your Google Analytics, and it looks like 33% of the visitors to your site already knew your name and typed it into their browser.
Yeah.
So we would assume that that's probably word of mouth. A neighbor told them.
Yeah. Or they saw you on a truck or something like that.
They saw your truck. They saw your sign. So if that pie chart that you're imagining in your mind is divided into thirds, 33% came from Google Analytics, we call that direct, 33% came from organic, and 33% came from PPC or paid, then we would be able to have a discussion with a client about, hey, it looks like a third of the visitors to your site come to you because of probably some offline marketing, because that's that direct source. That's a yard sign, it's a truck, it's a word of mouth, it's a radio ad. A third of them are coming from searching on a relevant term that they click on and then get to your site, and a third of them are coming from your paid ads.
Yeah.
So when
I would say if that was the case, like if that's the pie chart that I'm looking at, I would say to a contractor, hey, this looks really healthy.
Yeah, I would too. I would say that looks really healthy.
Yeah. So I just kind of diving into that, a good story of a contractor that I have worked with. We were looking at their, traffic pie chart, and for a while there, they were looking at basically about 90% of their traffic was coming from paid ads.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Really, really dangerous. And the reason that it's dangerous is because when you're dealing with, especially with paid ads, but really any source being that big of the source of your traffic, if something switches on that medium, on that source, like Google decides overnight they're going to do something different with their algorithm, and so all of a sudden your ad isn't getting shown as much as it was before,
or the cost of ads. I mean, we've seen that in the past 6 months, where the cost of paid traffic just keeps going up. So for your client, Don, where you're saying 90% of their traffic came from paid, man, they're being held hostage by that.
Yeah. So if something changes with that, which we have seen time and time happen, then all of a sudden your web traffic can just plummet,
Tank.
Yeah. And you're just up a creek without a paddle, with nothing to really be able to do about it. So we started to say, as soon as I started noticing that, I started communicating to them, we've really got to do some things to help diversify this picture here so that you're getting traffic from other sources. And then that way, it's the same thing that finance people talk about with
diversify
investments.
your portfolio.
Yeah. So that if something goes bad, your whole portfolio doesn't go bad. And it's the same thing with your web traffic. You want it coming from lots of places so that if for some reason part of it dries up, you're not sunk as a business. And that's why, analytics can be really helpful for being able to get that picture and just knowing, is all my traffic coming from one place and what do I need to do about that?
So Don, knowing that Google has pushed out a new version, we're shorthand calling it GA4, that's Google Analytics 4.
Yeah.
Is the traffic tracking that much different? What's different about GA4 that wasn't true about the old version?
Yeah, it's a little different. And so I don't want to get too technical with it on this episode, but it's a little different. And I'll say that as far as it relates to contractors, I think it's actually just better. Like Google Analytics 4 is doing a better job of being able to identify where the traffic is coming from, what the sources actually are, and helping to categorize those things more accurately, which is good. That's really good for contractors who are trying to, get a better picture of their
Maybe
data.
dial in their digital marketing a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's really good. The other thing, and this is probably the big new thing that Google Analytics 4 does that the older version of Analytics didn't do, is that they're trying to just be more aware of the way that people are using websites today. And so
what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So for example, what that can look like, and I think everybody can maybe relate to this experience, is that you might start out looking at a website on your phone and then, come back to your desk after lunch.
Or your iPad.
Yeah. And pick it back up by looking at it on your computer. Now, the old version of analytics would separate those things out as both different visitors and different visits and, not be able to connect the dots between the two. And so this new version of Google Analytics 4 is able to kind of see, based on knowing who you are, what the behind the scenes stuff of your devices looks like, they can kind of connect some of those dots and say, oh, this is the same person. They're just using different devices. And so this is really one visitor and one visit. And we can better track what are they actually doing using this site instead of separating all those things out. So where it can help is that we start to look at differentiating for contractors, what percentage of your traffic is on a mobile device and what of it is on a desktop device. And more, I think the lines between those things are getting blurred.
Right.
And what that means is that your mobile version of your site and your desktop version of your site both need to be stellar, right? They both really have to be up to par and functioning exactly the way that you want it to, because people are going to go back and forth between the two, and where they start in one place, they want to easily be able to pick up in the other place. Yeah.
So you may not know the answer to this question, and I'll admit I don't know the answer to this question, but it occurs to me to ask it. There's been a whole lot of, articles in the news about privacy and, Apple came out, was it the iPhone, iOS 13?
One of those, yeah.
One of those. Yeah. Just pretend that's the right number.
If you've got an iPhone, it's the thing now whenever you install a new app and it asks you, do you want to allow this app to track you? And 96 or 7% of people say, of course not.
Right.
We all do that.
So what occurs to me is I think Google is reacting to what is really happening with modern users. I'm sitting on my couch and I've got my phone. This is a true story. Sitting on my couch, I got my phone and my iPad. I am logged in on both my phone and my iPad with two different Google accounts, one for work and one for personal.
Yeah.
So if I bounce back and forth between my phone and my iPad and I'm using a Chrome browser, Google, I think, probably has a pretty easy time of tracking me and knowing that my search for a flight on Expedia that started on my phone and then moved to my iPad, that I'm the same person on the same website doing a similar search.
Yeah, that's right.
But if I've got an iPhone and I've turned on all of the privacy settings and I'm not using a Chrome browser and I'm using a Safari browser, and then I pop onto, I don't know, I'm going to get crazy, onto a Linux computer and I'm using some browser that I don't even know the name of, I'm guessing that that's where Google Analytics probably struggles.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, that's some of that is beyond even what I know. I know that of the analytics kind of tracking stuff, Google does the best at being able to, I won't say work around that, but they because they're essentially, you're installing it on your website, and so they're tracking on your behalf. That means that like they're not tracking it for themselves. They're trying to help you track it. And so because of that, it gives you more freedom to be able to actually just pay attention to what's going on your site that you own. And so that
I just know that somebody's going to ask me because I do all
absolutely.
the sales for Fat Cat and I get asked all kinds of questions by all kinds of contractors.
Right. It's different on a site like, say, Facebook, which is you're using someone else's site. And then what, how are people using that site and being tracked on that you would have access to? That's where things get a little more dicey and complicated. So Facebook and other apps like that have had a hard time with the Apple updates in ways that I think Google has had less of a difficulty.
We've even seen that when we look at people's analytics, when we look at our clients' analytics, and I'm, picturing, the screen that shows you users and sources of traffic, there's almost always the number one source for the past several years has been parentheses not set.
Yeah.
And that's because Google Analytics can't actually track those folks because they're probably on an iPhone or they've got some sort of privacy setting. I'm going to assume that that's going to be true in Google Analytics 4 as well.
Yeah, and I think this is something we're going to see play out legally and congressionally, for a while to come.
But what is it? It's 4 letters. It's in the UK. GDPR.
GDPR, yeah.
GDPR. We don't have that here. We actually have a few clients that are outside of the home improvement space, a couple of software clients that do business internationally, and GDP4 was a really big deal that we had to address in terms of cookies and tracking. And so we might have gotten a little bit too in the weeds on this episode. I guess if we wanted to bring it back around.
Yeah.
My point that I wanted to make, Don, you might have wanted to make a different point, is if you're a contractor and you've been getting text messages, emails, and phone calls from marketing vendors telling you to panic because a thing has happened.
Right.
And if you don't hire them to fix it, the shit's going to hit the fan.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, don't panic.
Don't panic.
Don't panic.
Yeah.
You should look to see if your website has analytics installed. If you've got the old version installed, it's going to stop working. When is it going to stop working?
I think by the time this episode has aired, it has just stopped working. July of 2023.
Okay, so sometime in the calendar year 2023, if you have a website for your contracting business and you had an old version of Google Analytics on it, the day you decide to log in and get some information about visitors, it's not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
So that's really the headline.
Right, yeah.
If you care, or somebody on your staff cares and they want to see that data, you'll have to update the version.
Yeah, that's correct. So I agree.
So how do people do that? How do they update it?
Okay, so a couple things. I'll just echo what you already said. If you are a contractor who has not been using Google Analytics, can you keep running your business without it? Absolutely.
Yes.
Don't panic. You don't have to have it. Could it help you? Yeah, probably so. But if you're at the stage in your business where you just don't have the time and the bandwidth to manage looking at that kind of data, don't sweat it. You don't have to worry about it. But the other big takeaway is if you are a contractor who has been using analytics and you haven't updated to Google Analytics 4, you do have to do that now. The old one won't keep working. And so we've actually created a way for you to know how to be able to do that. We've got a free resource that you can download that helps you understand about updating to Google Analytics 4. You can go to fatcatstrategies.com/GA4 and download our information there. It's free. It will walk you through how to do it. So you don't have to hire a marketing agency just to be able to set up Google Analytics 4. If you want some help with that, we're happy to help you. Yes. But we also want you guys to know that this isn't as big of a deal as everyone is making it out to be. And we'd love to provide you with some free information to be able to just knock this one out yourself. So check that out at fatcatstrategies.com/GA4. All right. I think we have covered it pretty well today, Janet. So let's.
Yeah. We chased some rabbits down some holes, but that's kind of my nature.
All good. That's what's fun about podcasting. So we'll wrap it up here today. We've enjoyed talking to you here on the Digital Marketing for Contractors podcast, and we look forward to connecting with you next time. We'll see you then. Digital Marketing for Contractors is created by Fat Cat Strategies. For more information, visit fatcatstrategies.com.